and come right down to that weight-bearing foot, which is that back foot right there. I'm going to draw from acromion to acromion. If you can't see the acromion, it's like right there. It's that bump right there. I like to look at it as the indentation as well, but it's the bump and the indentation. Okay. All right. There is a ridge right here and a ridge right here. And you'll see that that ridge kind of comes up and over and it stops right there. That is the iliac crest. And the iliac crest is where the obliques will connect to. So you're going to see like a little bump on both sides. That is iliac crest to iliac crest. I'm going to draw a line right to the top of those bones. So I'm going to get a lot more specific for you guys. Remember, we want to start with simple shapes. So I group my shapes and I go from acromion to the peak of the ribs right here. And I want to go from the peak of my ribs, right, down to the iliac crest from that pinch right there where the ribs stop. Right? Why is it pinching? Because bones are hitting up against anatomy, right? Bones are pushing up against the abdominal region. And then I have my width, okay? You're gonna notice I gotta add some information on right here, right? I've gotta subtract some information off right here. This is where we kind of think about drawing like sculpting, where we start with like a large mass of clay, okay? My head is facing down, so let's start with a little bit less drama, right? We're gonna start with just the cranium. Okay, I'm gonna come into that cranium and I'm gonna draw through it. Draw right through the center of the cranium, right through the center of my face. And this is really, really important because that center line is like the key for all anatomical drawing. I'm going to come right to the edge of my head. And I'm going to draw right through my jaw, come back around to the base of my jaw. And you're going to see, here's my perspective that I'm talking about. Nostrils, eyes, all that stuff should line up. And it all begins with this jawline right here. My jawline is not facing the right direction. Everything is going to go in an awkward direction, okay? This jawline is going to go up in space, and it's going to come down. The jaw tends to have three major planes on both sides, so I always want to kind of count my planes out. All right, it's going to come up and over, and then I do not want to forget my ear, right, and my eye line. My eye line, you can't really measure a halfway point with a head that's tilting down. You just have to kind of eyeball it, ironically. Eye line, eyeball. It was not intentional. All right, I want to make sure my chin line and my eye line are going in the same direction. So if I have that for a head, I'm at a place where it is like sufficient, okay? His neck is just kind of sticking out from the base of his head. Everyone following? Is good? Okay. If you want, if you're so inclined, you can throw in your rib cage, it's fine. Pelvis is going to be right here. That's the top of my pelvis that I've drawn. Base of my pelvis is going to come down, okay? We always want to throw in at least the gesture lines for our legs and at least the gesture lines for our arms. So now I have like a starting point. Okay, so far so good? All right. Am I just going to start into anatomy? No, right? What have we been talking about when we draw these our drawings? We always want to jump into shapes first, right? So the first thing that I want to do, since we are drawing our shoulders, is at least have like a very basic understanding of shape, right? I could come in, just like redraw my head just so I know that it is a completed shape. I don't have to draw anything else really at this point. Okay. So at least have the width of my arms established. You know, if you don't want to draw through your forearms, it's up to you, but I would try to. Okay. And then I like to just kind of draw through the extent of my legs, right? Just so I can get used to where they come from and the direction they're actually facing and what their shapes are doing. Okay. Step 2. I want to draw my placement. That means that if I am drawing a circular object, my line needs to circumvent around that object, right? If my shape is tilted the other way, my line needs to go that direction, okay? So if I am drawing across the plane of his chest, I'm thinking, okay, his chest is here's 1/3, 2/3, 3/3, okay, or that last third. My chest needs to go around the surface of that form, okay? The only reason I'm seeing the top is because he's tilted, but I'm actually seeing the bottom of his ribs, okay? Where's my eye line on this image? Can anyone tell me? It's right about here, okay? So here is my pectoralis major. You notice I draw that line all the way across, right? So I'm not like forcing myself to stick within some sort of weird parameters that I'm creating for myself incorrectly, right? Luckily, my center line in this drawing is the exact same. Actually, it's not, it's a little bit off. My center line in this drawing is a little bit off. It's gonna come down here. Okay. I'm gonna draw all the way down. And this center line, right, represents the sternum. Okay. Now I've already established here's one side, here's two sides of my pectoralis major. Okay. Remember, we talked about planes. So I'm going to look at the side plane of his chest, and I'm going to see here's 1, 2, 3 planes, right? 1, 2, 3 planes. So that is that big front plane that we want to kind of focus on. And it's kind of like what I just keep in the back of my head. I don't need to draw it right now. And I want to draw my pentagon. So, or that 5-sided shape. So 1, 2, 3, right, wants to go into the arm. 4 is right to the 2/3 mark of the clavicle, and then 5. I don't even need to complete that last little line. And then this other side is going to be 1, right, into the arm, 2, 3, 4, and I'm missing a little bit of that angle right here. I'm going to draw it in. There's that 5th like little line. Okay, it's going to be going right through there. So now what I'm doing is I'm teaching myself how to draw this outside silhouette shape, right? Because I'm thinking about the anatomy, okay? You're gonna notice this is a thick or thin line right here. That is a thick, massive line that comes around that circumference, right? Over here, it is a thin one, right? This one's facing us. You're seeing that whole circumference of the pectoralis major. This one's facing away from us, so it's really, really tapering in space. Okay, now I'm going to come in and I'm going to draw through the width of his torso. I'm going to come in and I'm going to start to break down planes. Remember we talked about that tube that kind of makes the, I'm going to just really draw, exaggerate, that tube that makes the center of his rib cage. I'm going to draw down the center of that tube, not rib cage, abs, center of that tube. Stop. I'm going to come down, center of the tube, come down, draw all the way down to that pubic bone. Okay. And then I want to draw through my shoulders, and my shoulders want to start right at that point where the pecs ended, which is about 1/3 down the clavicle. They're going to start right there. They're going to come up, over, and about 1/3 to halfway down the arm. And I don't need to draw through this line, but what I want to pay attention to is the shadow shape right here, because that shadow shape is the separation between the armpit, not the armpit, the pectoralis major, which makes the armpit, right? And that deltoid, which starts the top of it. And if I was to draw the deltoid in like extraneous amounts of detail, which I can, it's gonna just annoy you guys, right? Deltoid's gonna come up and over. You're only seeing 2 heads. You're seeing that top head and that side head. It's gonna kind of like wrap around like that, okay? And then my arm, I just wanna draw through my arm. It's gonna come out and it's gonna intersect. So there's my connection there. I want to draw through the trapezius. The trapezius is going to come up and over on both sides. I want to make a dark mark through the face. And I'm going to come over to the shoulder, bless you, on that side. It's going to come to the 1/3 mark, which is like right about there. You're going to notice when that shoulder flexes, right, it's going to push itself up and it's going to push itself around the bicep. And there's that head of the shoulder. Okay. All right, so what my goal for you guys today is to like really practice these silhouette shapes so you can understand how to connect them with a lot more accuracy, okay? I'm not gonna worry too much about value today. What I really just wanna see is how are you getting your proportions down? How are you getting your placement down? Okay, we'll do a really quick back view as well. I'll make sure to save these out and kind of like pretty them up a little bit for you guys. Oops. Does anyone have any questions about this drawing? Okay. Front. Yes. Okay. You're asking me like this right here. It is the edge of the rib cage. Let's draw it in. It's the corner of the rib cage, not the edge. So let's make this a little bit lighter. Right, so his ribs are, oh, you mean like this ellipse right here? I drew it way too high. Yeah, that's it. His ribs are like right here. So his ribs are dropping a little bit and they're creating that shadow shape. So it's almost like they're lifting up. They're kind of doing that because they're tilting back. Does that make sense? Okay. And that's why they're causing that shadow because they're kind of creating a trough. There's a really famous John Singer Sargent painting that I show you guys in my anatomy class. You remember like all of this is in shadow and then the pelvis is kind of like tilted down, but this is tilted back in space. But it looks like a flat line right here. It's the shadow that's kind of like telling you, hey, this is tilted back in space more than anything else. So that shadow is kind of like referencing that tilt, if that makes sense. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to draw right through my gesture, right to that weight-bearing leg, right? Chromian, very clear right there. Take chromian. Boop. All right, pelvis, follow that panty line. Easy way to kind of find it, pelvis. I want to start with my really, really simple shapes. Okay. And you could see even in her silhouette, I'm already starting to taper, right, from that wider hourglass shape on top, right, to the like little linear cylinder on the base. Okay. So it's kind of what I want to think about. Arms are coming out like this, out like this. Okay. And then we're going into the back of the head, into the back of the head. Okay, so there's my really simple gesture. Legs have to come into the pelvis. Always draw through the glutes when I have a back view, and then I always want to draw through the spine. So messy bunch of lines, but you know, if you turn off the drawing, That's what you're gonna kind of see. I'm missing the rest of her leg. Oops. There we go. Okay. All right, we're gonna make this a little bit lighter. I know I'm going fast. I just want to give you guys some time. So I want to construct this from this point. Okay. I like to start with the head. I like to build the planes of the head. Okay. And then I'm going to draw straight down to the neck in this view, break apart the neck, right, and then find my jaw. Okay. There's that center line. There's not really too much to do. And then because this is a back view, right, I want to kind of think about the ears as those trunks. You're only going to see just a slight like view of that, like on this side. And then if you can see a bun, use the bun. What does the bun help you do? Yeah, perspective, direction, whatever you want to call it. Right? It's going to show me that she's pointing that way. Okay. Draw through that head. Make sure that the jawline always overlaps and that the neck is always in front of that jaw because that's what's going to show direction. Okay. This is a very important, like crucial landmark right there. All right. Then I want to draw through my anatomy. So I'm going to draw from acromion to acromion. I'm going to go to the widest point of the ribs, widest point of the ribs. I want to draw through the shapes of the arms, through the shapes of the arms. We are going to talk about the arms and legs in a lot of detail. Right? And I want these lines to intersect. Right? So I want to think about abs and rib cage, abs and rib cage. Right? I'm going to come all the way down to the pelvis. And I'm going to start with like a really, really simple shape. Then I'm going to come back up. I'm going to go into the spine, and I want to indicate those landmarks that are like vital for me, right? Spine, and I want to make sure that it connects right into the sacrum. I want to draw through her scapula, through her scapula. All right, we're going to talk about why this is important and make sure that I am like aware of like where it is going and what it is doing. I'll even draw it in lightly just so you guys can see. There's that triangle of the scapula. Okay. I want to lay the breast on top and I want it to feel like, I don't know how else to explain this, but it needs to feel like it's kind of drooping. Doesn't want to be like a perfect circle, right? And this is mostly for the boys who are not aware. Come on, boys, pay attention. All right. Women know their own bodies. Men are stupid. It's true. Come on. Then I want to draw through my trapezius, and I want to connect that curve that's kind of on top of that form. So I'm always going from big to small shapes. The shoulder is going to go into the scapula. So I want to imagine that I'm drawing a line from the scapula. It's going to come up and over. And then how far down the arm does it go? About 1/3, right? So I'm going to have 1, 2, 3 planes. You're going to see it's going to want to come in and it's going to want to connect right through here. You can see this little shadow shape right there. So all I want to do is make sure that it's intersecting the arm, okay? And then my arm is going to be really, really soft curve here. The curve tends to be much softer on a female form than a male form. Oops, that was a huge eraser. Okay. And then the shoulder on this side, you can see it wants to come into the scapula right through there. It's going to be 1, 2, 3 lines, right? but it's going to be really, really tight, and it's going to go into the scapula right through here. It's going to wrap around. So all this kind of disappears. 1, 2, 3 lines. So I want to force that shape into it, even if it feels flat. I always kind of think in terms of 3, like that turtle shell. Same thing is kind of happening here, right? I can see that 1, 2, 3 planes, that back of that turtle shell, right? To create that kind of like division and depth and space. Looks like I wrote BS, but I wrote big. Okay. And there's that lower arm. Okay. Now I want to draw through those anatomical landmarks. You can see a really big one right here. Okay, make sure you're drawing those anatomical landmarks in. I forgot on the other one to like talk about that. I'm gonna go back and lay them in. Her ab is gonna push out. Okay. So if we can get to like that state, that stage today, you guys are on the right track. Okay. She's got a very narrow torso. Don't yes. Right here. Right there. And it goes right into the latissimus dorsi, which is right there. It's a lot of anatomy that we're not going to talk about in this class, but it's right there. I'm going to like overemphasize it just so you can see it. Okay. And it'll be kind of in perspective like that. Yeah. So if you imagine like we're seeing a square right here, and this is where all that stuff that we worked on is really, really important. The pelvis looks like this in perspective. Oops. You're actually seeing underneath the glute, and then the glute is like coming up and over. So iliac crest is here and here. Any questions about this?